suppliers had different amounts that would fit a truckload. So
Okay.
they had to remove one or two, so it would just be one truckload.
So it's a different size truck for them.
Just so you don't have to pay a minimum delivery fee for a small amount of poles.
Right.
We tried to get it to where it was a full truck and you have to put on, I think it goes, what was it, like units?
Yes.
You can kind of check on each pole size and it categorizes it up to 400 and some units as a full truck, so you pull some or add some to get to that number.
But it turns out Thomason is getting us all the poles we want, and they're still the cheapest. And it's usually always worked out that way. Thomason is who we always go with, but we still double check and get other quotes.
Okay,
Okay.
I would entertain a motion to purchase their recommendation of Thomason.
I'd like to motion to purchase utility poles from Thomason.
And I'll support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, moving on to informational items, performance data. September, we had just under $751,000 in sales compared to $721 last year, a 4% increase. And you'll see that current fiscal year to date and previous fiscal year to date are very, very close. Customer count for residential was down 5 compared to the previous month, and commercial was up 7. Residential load was down significantly compared to the previous year, and that was due to, I believe, number of days, correct, Megan?
Yes.
Just number of billing days, and as well as I do think there was actual drop in load, but I think there was a couple less days, and commercial kilowatt hours were up significantly, but all in all, sales were up compared to the previous year by 29,000. Moving to the middle of the page, July, very similar sales compared to last year, 7.531 million compared to 7.591 million. That's a very, very healthy amount. Peak load in August was down just over a megawatt compared to the previous year, and we did have internal generation, almost 22,000 kilowatt hours in August. No updates to the residential and commercial billing statistics. Those will be available next month. Moving on to cash. Slight increase, just 1.35% compared to the previous month. Very large increase, 46% compared to the previous year. The main difference compared to the previous month was the transfer into our Fifth Third Bond Redemption Fund. And for Jeff's information, we have an outstanding bond that we were initially issued in 2002. It was refinanced in 2012. It expires in 2027, and we have semi-annual payments. By August 1st, we have a principal and interest payment. By February 1st, we have just an interest payment, and we make a monthly transfer from our Huntington Bank account to our Fifth Third Bond Redemption account, so that we make our bond transfer out of that account. So you'll see that increase by almost $26,000 every month, and then twice a year you'll see that decrease.
Thank you.
Going down to delinquents, balance after shutoff, decrease of 13,000 compared to the previous month, but up compared to the previous year. Delinquent at the end of the month was up almost 1,000, as well as the delinquent balance from the previous month. We had $57 remaining, and delinquent balance of inactive accounts was up almost $800 compared to the previous month, and down $2,400 from the previous year. Aging analysis, we were up slightly compared to the previous month, but down 22,000 compared to the previous year, and we're just at $3,900 from the 61 to 90 plus day compared to $4,900 from the previous year. So the delinquent balance of inactive accounts and the 61 to 90 plus days, those bottom couple lines of those sections, are the lines that I really like to pay attention to, because those are the people who haven't paid you in a long time and who might never pay you. So, any questions on the performance data?
I will note that starting next month, we'll have a year of AMI data. So the previous year comparison, the days cycle will be more similar than it was in the past. So just so you're aware.
And an individual can get that information to her business too, so I can compare to what,
Yep.
since I have it, so I can go get it and what would happen last year.
Yep, through the app, you can
Yep.
see that, yes.
Alrighty, down to outage summary. We had 3 outages this month that affected a total of 6 customers. Burned up fuse, and then a couple critters, a raccoon and a squirrel. So they got us. All in all, we were 99.9994% reliable for the month, and that helped out our AC, SAIDI, and SAFE numbers. You will see that our KD increased, and KD is the average minutes interrupted per customer. And that was mainly driven by one customer that was out for 343 minutes that occurred in the middle of the night. So they may not have known they were even off because it occurred at 12:34 and or 12:51, and we restored them at 6:34 in the morning. So I guess we're still
they-
out,
were
still
they-
out for 6 hours, but at least they were sleeping. What's that?
So did our guys get notified in the middle of the night that their power was out?
Yes, there was an email that did come through, yes. Sometimes we get random ones, and when it's a single one like that, we don't always roll a truck just to go investigate when it's the middle of the night like that.
That was from the AMI?
Yes.
Okay.
If it was multiple emails, we probably would have rolled the truck out to figure it out, but it was one particular address, and
You don't get a
some
call
random-
from Coldwater either.
Yeah, there was not a call from Coldwater till early in the morning, close to that time when it was restored, so just the choice that we made at that point.
So you do get some spurious emails then?
Once in a while, we get just some goofy stuff happening with one meter here or there, so that's kind of why we chose not to go out and investigate it. It's very random.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions about the outage report? We're having a very good streak right now of increasing our statistics. So I'd love to keep
Yeah.
it going for another 3 months because when we pull out our annual report next year, it should be pretty awesome. So, income statement. Again, $751,000 in sales. We were under budget for the month. We budgeted $790,000, and that translates us to being 3.5% under budget for the year. And this is mainly due in the general service demand transformer ownership and the GSD, general service demand. And primarily this is just, there's a lot of load yet that just had not happened from King Milling that we had expected to be online, which it just didn't come online as fast as we had thought. So that's primarily the reason for that variance. But you'll see that total operating revenue is within 2.43% of budget. So all in all, very, very close. Moving down to generation expenses, we were over budget. The primary reason for this was bearing work that had to be done by an outside vendor on one of our 2 turbines. It was just an unexpected item that pretty much had to be done that Barney brought to me, and it just needed to be done for the integrity and safety and testing and running of the turbine. So that was an $8,100 expense, and there was just more time spent on the stack test in September. So that's the reason for the over budget in generation for the month. You'll see that purchase power was significantly under budget for the month, and again, purchase power will directly tie to revenue. So when revenue is under budget, you'll see purchase power is under budget. So that is the benefit of having sales under budget. In distribution, you'll see that we're over budget by $16,000, and you'll see the maintenance of overhead lines. We had almost $36,000 in expense and a budget of $2 million. This is entirely Hurricane Irma. Megan actually will be invoicing, or if she already has earlier this month, the 2 utilities we helped down there for all of the payroll time, as well as the FICA, health insurance portion, all the overhead, retiree, and we're actually going to be invoicing those 2 utilities $53,500. So there's $53,500 of expense that showed up on this income statement that will be reduced next month. So you got to take some of our expenses this month with a grain of salt, and I'll talk about that when we get to the net income, that if we had invoiced in September, our net income would have been $53,500 higher this month. So we're just going to have the benefit of having happen next month. So, does that make sense, everybody? Customer accounting, we were under budget for the month. Same with marketing and advertising. Outside service, we were over budget, and a lot of that is due to legal, and that relates to the ongoing biodigester situation, and that just kind of is what it is, and it's a large expense for us. Property and liability, or total office insurance and maintenance, we were right on budget there. Total employee benefits and other compensation, we were way over budget, and that is due to the employment agreement that we approved last month. So it was a one-time payment that we made to an employee. So that's the reason we were over budget on total employee benefits and other compensation. But overall, operating income of $27,480, and again, this would have been over $50,000 higher if we had invoiced those utilities in September, and that leads us down to a net income of minus $14,000 and a year-to-date variance of $56,577, and we'd be darn near right on budget with that invoice. So overall, 3 months year-to-date, we're doing very well. If there aren't any questions, we'll move on to the capital project report. Look at the second page of this report. We spent $55,000 in the last month on capital projects. $31,500 went to the standby generator that we did end up purchasing down in Houston, Texas. $7,200 in the system upgrade line item, $9,700 on our compressor payment, and $6,700 to fund our vehicle replacement fund. So,
Is the generator on site yet, or is it another week out or so?
generator is on site.
Okay.
Was delivered probably 2-3 weeks ago. So I'll talk further about that in the manager's report coming up here in a second. Any questions on the capital budget? Alrighty, on to the manager's report. I had the monthly MPPA board meeting yesterday, and it was a pretty typical board meeting. They talked about their preliminary budget, and in that budget, they're showing a net decrease to the agency for the cost per megawatt hour for power, and the main reason for this is the expiration of Bell River debt service. APPA and MPPA dues slow a modest increase, I think of 1.5 to 1.7%. So overall, very good news from the agency yesterday. And the Kalkaska Combustion Turbine Committee, and Lowlight Power is part of that Kalkaska Combustion Turbine, we just renewed our service agreement with Pratt Whitney, and there was $20,000 increase to that cost, but they're starting to implement a full audit instead of mini audits, because this past time around they found a lot of problems with the unit, so we upped our service agreement with Pratt Whitney. A couple Mondays ago, I had the annual fall meeting with Campbell 3 with Consumers Energy in West Olive, and there was really nothing of significance to report from that meeting. The unit has been running according to plan, and they still expect it to run for another decade, which is great news for us, because the debt service on that's set to expire here in 4 to 5 years, so we'll have the benefit of more debt expiring and lower power rates. MMEA conference, last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I was in Lansing. Ryan, Megan, and Julie, and Andrew were able to attend on Wednesday, and there were a number of, I thought, pretty good sessions. Ryan and I attended a session that focused on technology for workforce management, and this is kind of incorporated in our strategic plan. There's a GIS system in our strategic plan. This is like a mapping system that you can have on your tablet. You can drill down to our lines, our fuses, our transformers, meters, and we hope to, in the next fiscal year, start researching and potentially implementing this with a AMI meter data management system, or an MDM. Megan was actually just at a conference earlier this week with our AMI vendor, and they talked about MDM systems, and we want to incorporate a work order and timesheet management system on our tablets. So there's a ton of moving parts and systems that need to be integrated, and 1,000 different vendors that are out there to choose from. But this is something that I expect we will be spending a lot of time and attention attacking this fall, leading into the winter, and hopefully by next year figure out what we're gonna do with this, because I'm a tech guy and I think that's the way of the future, and it would be nice and handy for us to get everything digitalized instead of old school. Right now, we rely on GRP, our engineers, to update our system maps. And whenever we do something on our system, we have to mark up our maps by hand, give them to them, they update their software, and we really don't have access to that. It's kind of theirs, they can print it out or show us, but we can't model anything ourselves. Ryan just thinks it would be awesome if we could do those updates ourselves right when they happen. You don't forget about anything, and keep very good, accurate records. Anything to say about that, Ryan?
No, I think you covered it really well. It's exactly what we're looking for.
On Thursday, we received updates about Public Act 341 and 342, and we talked about wind farms in the Thumb, about what went wrong there, and really, as you can expect, they didn't get community buy-in, and there were some people that felt that they were benefiting and some people that felt they weren't, and people voted accordingly. So we really talked about what went wrong in the Thumb and the Huron County, and why the next era wind project didn't go forward, but the Tuscola project is looking positive. And we received a lengthy APPA legislative update that I'm not going to bore you with, but there's a lot going on in Washington, just with the Clean Power Plan and Donald Trump being there and his opposite view compared to Obama of everything related to energy. So just a lot of moving parts. APPA side, our application has been submitted in full, and we should hear about something back in the next 2 or 3 months. And again, Tom Russo did an excellent job with that. Nothing new with the biodigester. I expect in the next month to a month and a half, I will be giving an update on this, but for right now, there's nothing to report. Our 5-year plan has started. You may have seen Severance Electric Corporation down by the Walgreens area, the bank, Mercantile Bank, performing their directional bore underneath M21. And that went, to my understanding, very well. We have not started our portion of the project. Really, our team was down in Irma for most of the month, and the guys who were here were just taking care of normal work orders and service orders. And as soon as we have our material, that's a project that we'll be starting this fall. Anything to add on that, Ryan?
Nope, everything went really well. Severance is done with their work, except for just the final landscaping and setting a few vaults out there, but they're really close. They're almost done.
Other system projects, do you want to give an update, Ryan? I know you guys have been, since I wrote this, got some vaults over by Sneakers and some tree trimming that you're going to continue on with.
Well, the tree trimming is just a continuation of tree trimming. We're focusing on the area where that line extension is going to go out to Adix. That's a pretty heavily wooded area that needs to just be cleared really well, since it's going to go up to 3-phase. So we're focusing on that area, and then also the entire circuit number 207, which is everything sort of south of the river. Some stuff on this side of the river, but there's not much trimming that's needed on this side. The majority of it is out in the country. We've done a lot of the trimming along Alden Nash. It's kind of an obvious area where a lot of you guys drive by. You probably noticed that one, but
Yeah.
we're going to continue doing that same degree of trimming everywhere else on every other branch that you see going out in the country. Yeah, and then the other project is just focusing on getting that 3-phase up to Adix so they can keep moving forward. They really need it. The reasoning for that is they have a laser cutter coming in for cutting their material. Right now they have a team of like 8 or 10 people at tables with electric scissors cutting all this stuff out, and they can replace all of those people or move them, not replace them, they'll move them to other jobs, and then this laser table will take over and do it all. Instead of those 8 people doing cutting, they'll do sewing or something else. So the laser table requires really clean 3-phase power. They can't use their phase converters that they're using right now to operate their heaters and their irons for the, to iron on the decals onto the shirts. So that it just has to have really, really good, clean 3-phase power. So that's the main need out there. As far as that goes, we're just working away at every other little thing that we have going on.
Keeping very busy.
Yes, we have lots to do. Always lots to do.
And then really the big ticket items that happened this past month relate to the gas compressor installation and stack test. And Barney, I'll let you talk about that since you're the main man for this.
Last month, we had, for the board meeting, we had problems with the gas compressor. It's a completely brand new, been built just for us, and of course, there were bugs in it. After that, they got the bugs worked out, and the bottom line is, it was running both turbines at max load with no problems at all. It was operational tests, start and stop in each one, and it's running good. And from there, we went on into the exhaust gas test. Passed out with flying colors. Now that was all in the same week. It hit the line. Got it done.
And it is good that we had our permit reviewed. I'm going to butcher the exact numbers or parts per million or how many pounds per hour, but I think with NOx or nitrogen, our parts per million were 48-ish. And before our permit was reviewed, that threshold was in the low 40s. So we would have not passed if our permit was not reviewed. Upon review of our permit, our threshold was increased to a correct amount of 155. So even though the DEQ messed up our permit, and when we inquired if it was messed up, they said they did not, and it took a third-party vendor who's an expert in permits to go through this and calculate that the DEQ messed up. If we had failed, even though it was incorrect, it would have been a cumbersome, difficult process, even though it was the DEQ that still had initially messed up our permit. So it did come down to the wire, but it was good that we went the route we did because we ended up passing with flying colors. But if we had done the test earlier in the spring, we wouldn't have passed, and there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, even if we changed the permit. And logic and common sense doesn't work much with the DEQ apparently, and that's the way it is. Anyway, great job, Barney. What?
Their calculation's off by a factor of 3
Almost 4.
or 4, yeah.
Yeah.
Gee.
So great job, Barney. Huge accomplishment. Both turbines are now fully commissioned, and we plan to bring NTH back in to do a complete audit of how we do things going forward to make sure that we're keeping the right records, performing the correct maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. So we're bringing them in to pretend that they are the state of Michigan, give us an audit, tell us what we're doing good, bad, need to improve on, or not even doing, so that if we ever did get audited by the state, we're 100% in compliance. And this is pretty typical for smaller munis like us to have an outside consultant who's very familiar with lengthy and detailed air quality permits. So they'll be doing that later this year. Long-term, we already talked about the distribution department. Long-term natural gas supply. We have a meeting with consumers on October 26th here in Lowell to talk about how we can move this project forward. Ultimately, they're going to need to purchase a small segment of land outside our building, hopefully take down the little green building and build a regulator station there. We don't know the footprint yet, but we need to get the footprint, advertise it for sale. It'll need to go before the Light and Power Board and the City Council. We're hoping to have this entire process wrapped up by mid-December. And there will be further presentations about this, but we are making good progress with this, and they expect that their work will begin in 2018 for the gas system infrastructure upgrades.
In this process with the city and everything, with that property, will there be easements, different things, so that if the city at some point wants to put a boardwalk along that we don't come into a snag that all of a sudden, oh, we can't because consumers won't give us an easement, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess I just want to throw that out there because I know, I mean, it's nothing that's in stone or something, but there's been constant talk about it at some point, maybe putting a boardwalk along the river or along Main Street over to the Riverwalk and that type of thing. So
I think it's a great thing for Ryan, Barney, and I to bring up in our meeting.
So if they, you know, if if they're buying that, I would certainly still want the city to look at in the whole thing as still having easement for a boardwalk on the other side of it.
Okay,
That's a great idea.
that's great. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up. And again, this will be presented further. Consumers will be at a future board meeting to present this. I've been looking at the numbers, and I do not want to issue any debt for this project. And it is going to cost $750,000. A big chunk of change, but it's much cheaper than the $30 or $40 million we were quoted a couple of years ago. We can make this happen. I don't think, I know, we're going to have to push back, unless somebody hits the lotto, one of our capital projects, and it's looking like it would be the upgrade to the solar combustion turbine control panel, just so we can cash flow this thing. Shouldn't push it back that long, but I think we're gonna have to move this project ahead of time because Consumers is gonna be here performing $30 million in upgrades. It's our one shot to get it done unless we wanna bring them back at a higher cost. So we'll talk further about that, but just wanted to bring it up now, so start thinking about it. Standby generator. After we approved this item last month, we let the vendor know we're gonna buy it, and they said you need to wire us the money and then we'll put it on the truck. And I did not feel comfortable with wiring a vendor that we've never worked with $31,500 for a piece of equipment that's used, and they were in Houston where there was just flooding. So I talked this over with Perry, and Perry did not feel comfortable with wiring them money either. So we actually enlisted Tom to fly down on a direct flight to Houston really early in the morning. He met with the vendor, saw the unit run all the way up to full load, asked him, I'm sure, 1,000 questions, because that's how Tom is.
He's back. He's still not asking questions.
No, he's not. We flew him back the same day, and Tom actually did a lot of research and had looked up the manual ahead of time and
You watched it being loaded on the truck.
watched it being physically loaded on the truck to an independent party, and we wired him the money, and Tom flew back, and
It was here on Monday.
it was here on Monday. So it worked out, and Tom thinks we got a great deal and that it was undervalued, especially for how good it looks, and he saw it run. So it was an expensive plane ticket, but knowing we got the generator for $25,000 to $30,000 less than comparable units, and we got the assurance that we didn't waste $31,500 to somebody in India, I think it was a wise move to send Tom down there. MERS conference, I really discussed this during the action items with the cost of living increase, but there was just a number of sessions that I was able to attend and a lot of good takeaways, but the crux of it was the discussion that we talked about with the cost of living increase. Community solar, there was nothing new. When I wrote this, I received almost too good to be true news from the solar vendor that they are able to offer us a purchase power agreement starting at 4 cents with a escalator of just over 3% for 25 years. I've done an analysis, not as detailed as the hydro yet, but over a 25-year period, factoring in the original cost with the escalator, how much capacity credit we would receive, because solar is significantly better than hydro. Solar is at its best during the middle of the day in the summer, and that's completely opposite of hydro. An all-in cost of roughly 5.3 cents over 25 years. MPPA thinks it's a no-brainer from talking with their CEO and CFO yesterday. Now, Ryan and I had a discussion with them today. This does not include interconnection costs and land acquisition costs. That'll drive up the cost some, but I'm still thinking it'll be in the less than 6 cents over 25 years. We're having another call with them next week. I sent them a layout of our service territory, Ryan and I, just on Google Maps, because we're trying to find areas where we'll have 3-phase and that the interconnection can be very easy. And Dependable Gas has a lot of green space, and we're gonna have 3-phase with the new Addicts line that's going out there. And actually just east of our substation, on the south side of the road, Grand Rapids Gravel,
Oh, yeah.
they own a lot of land right there, right next to our substation, next to every one of our circuits. So I'm gonna pass this information on to the vendor. This would be something where all the responsibility would be on the vendor. I don't want us to own the land, lease it to them. We just have a PPA. We're responsible for buying the power, they're responsible for the maintenance, making sure the system performs as contracted, the land, etc. And that's MPPA's recommendation as well with any sort of solar and wind type of PPA. So gonna be doing a lot of work with this in the next month to see if we can't get something figured out. But the system would be a 2.5 to 3.5 megawatt system. Very large, but it would offset market purchases for us. And we'd actually be money ahead when you factor in the capacity of solar. We would actually be cheaper than us buying power on the market. So it would be pretty awesome. So a lot more to come on this. I don't know if you have any feedback or thoughts about community solar or about the 2 locations I kind of threw out. If not,
What is meant by community solar? Like, is that just
solar
like-
located right in the community,
Okay,
interconnected
so
with
just
our own
local
system,
solar,
almost
okay.
behind the meter. So it's going to decrease the load that the MPPA and that MISO sees at our substation because it's on our system, kind of like our generators.
So it's a locally generated solar.
Correct.
So it's not just buying a solar project on the other side of the state,
Correct.
kind of an analogy here.
It's almost, I mean, almost, you can't count on it like our turbines because it can't run at night.
Yeah.
But you would still have 2.5 to 3.5 megawatts, and depending on how the batteries developed in the future,
Yeah,
you
there's
could
that.
locate batteries and dispatch that battery power when you need to. So, could be pretty awesome. A lot of hoops to jump through.
Was,
I don't want to get everybody's,
And the technology.
but the price was right.
mhm.
And you can't go forward if the price isn't right.
So as more people start getting electric cars, they'll put a battery in their garage, charge it during the day, plug in their car at night. Right?
Right?
At least that's how I'm thinking.
Potential.
So,
Right. Just to give you some perspective, Traverse City signed a community solar project for 11.5 cents in the last month. So if we got 4 cents, it'd be phenomenal. MPPA isn't even seeing projects at this price for the 30 to 50 megawatt size.
so why is,
What kind of history does this come from?
yeah, so why is this price so,
I talked with them further, and I called them back because I had that question. Their investor, I think I talked with Marty about it, their investor just doesn't need the 8, 10, 12, 14% returns like other investors. I think he likes, or they like the idea of green energy, promoting it within the state. Bonds are not at 4 or 5%. You're investing with a community that's been around, with a utility that's been around since 1896. You're doing something good and you can get a good, safe return and you're doing a good thing for the world, and just somebody that doesn't feel the need to take 14% from a small community.
What kind of acreage do they need? Do you know?
About an acre, a megawatt. So it'd be roughly 4 megawatts, 4 acres.
Andrew, your front yard's about that big, isn't it?
no, there's a big tree there.
Oh, okay.
We got a truck.
Yeah.
They
We have a tree
can deal with trees.
So anyway, that's the community solar. Expect to hear more about that going forward. Fiber to the home, nothing new to report. White's Bridge Hydro, when I wrote this, there was nothing new. Since then, I've had numerous emails with Victor, and anyway, I'm just gonna be as nice as I can. I told him 7 cents was way too high, even though he originally at first offered us 8 cents. I showed him my model, I was very transparent, I said 7 cents is still $1 million spread. And that was like in August. He just came back to me and says, well, can I get feedback from the board about how they feel about 7.2 cents? And I wrote him an email back. I said, I feel very confident and strongly that the board will not be receptive to this price. It's like a $1.3 million gap over 20 years, and factoring in net present value of the money at 2%, it's a $1.114 million gap. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't think we need to have a super long discussion about this. Is this safe to say that a $1.1 to $1.3 million gap is far too wide
What do you mean by gap?
between the cost of power on the market over the 20 years and the increased cost that we'd pay Victor for the same amount of power?
Okay.
It goes against our mission statement, safe of, I know that, you know, I think we had, as a board, we had excitement about it because the city of Lowell once owned that, built that, and it was just more nostalgia. Great idea, but at the same time, you know, our mission statement is, and I don't have it right in front of me, but safe, reliable, cost-effective power.
Got it.
And if it's not, it needs to be cost-effective. You know, we were thinking of, oh, it could be a goodwill type thing, you know, Lowell once owned it, yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line is, I think the community and our users really don't care about that. They want the cheapest, safest, reliable power possible, and that's not it. Especially when you just came in with solar being at 4 cents.
And it's located here, which is a huge benefit.
So, my opinion is, unless Victor gets, you know, where it's on a even playing field, I'm not for it.
I mean, and I know in the past, you know, we were excited about it being local. I mean, that's one thing I personally like, is just the more local control. Granted, it's a third party still, but when it's something nearby,
Right.
it's easier to have a little more control over it. That part of it's nice, but then we talked also before, a few months ago when this came up, that we talked about, well, there's the renewable aspect, but there's plenty of other renewable available in solar and wind that we've been pursuing, and so that's not a huge concern. And then we talked about the diversity, and I think you said our portfolio of energy is already quite diverse and quite safe, and so it's, at this point, it's kind of like, having that would be icing on the cake, because we've got a kind of multi-layered cake already. And so for it to be attractive, it has to be competitive price-wise, I think. And especially if there's really this option of the community solar, that's very competitive price-wise.
Incredibly
Yeah,
competitive.
and it's also a locally generated power source then that's the kind of thing we'd be looking for. You know, that's the kind of option that's like, yeah, we can't say no to that. You know, it's hard to say no to something like that. You know, so not saying that, you know, that Victor would have to come all the way down to like 4 or something, but, because that's not a huge amount, but still, has to be worthwhile. Like you said, if it's $1 million over 20 years, there's a lot of infrastructure projects or
Or pension.
pension, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's exactly the pension right there, so.
Is
So
is there a
that's-
fundamental reason? Is there a fundamental reason that hydro would be more expensive than solar today? Or is it just,
I don't know. He's
Sourcing.
never shared with me his ongoing operating expenses. I do know how much he generates. I think it's close to 3 million kilowatt hours a year. At 8 cents would be $240,000.
Yeah.
So I know he has permitting, ongoing maintenance with the actual turbines and getting those inspected. I know he is an operator, paying taxes, you have land costs. So I'm not sure what his margin is, but I mean, there's only so low he can go. I don't think he's gonna be able to get to below 6. So that's just my gut. Alrighty. September payables are in your packet. I have a couple other things. Harvest Fest is this Saturday. It's my understanding that Marty
Yep.
and Perry will be grilling.
Yay.
Numerous staff will be there. We will be having bucket rides if it is not a torrential downpour.
Are we
And
dropping pumpkins from the?
yes, we will be dropping pumpkins, and somebody on the ground will be trying to shoot the pumpkin with a gun while it's good.
Harry, I got one about that big. We'll drop that somewhere and see what it does.
And actually, about bucket truck rides, Mike Burns has requested that he be on our agenda next meeting. He's had further conversations with the insurance company about our bucket truck rides and options going forward and risks that we may assume if we continue to give them. So just a heads up, he'll be here next meeting. Oh, I thought you were doing something like you didn't care.
Oh, the world's smallest.
Sorry, Perry.
Proving himself.
SUS update, Julie told me yesterday that they plan to release the second phase this weekend. Is that still true?
Yes, they're working through some things, but that's the.
The phase 2 will allow for e-bill. It'll allow for an outage map, where once a meter goes out, it'll show a pinpoint of what meter's out on a map. And they'll have detailed usage, hourly usage, instead of just, your monthly usage, hourly, daily, stuff like that. And there'll be new promotional material that will be played in our lobby. That other video has been going on for 2-3 months, so we'll have a new video, and that new video will go to the movie theater as well. And then the only thing that's left to come is the reoccurring payment option. So currently, people can make a reoccurring payment through Clearwater, and we have a platform to do that. We're going to eliminate Clearwater being the platform to do that, and it'll all be on SUS. So right now, SUS, you can make a one-time payment at no fee. We're going to allow for a reoccurring payment at no fee on SUS. And then last, the roof work begins next week, that we approved 4 months ago now. So it's a good thing we approved it when we did, but they'll be starting next week. And that's all I have.
I know we approved the agenda. There's one action item that I'd like to go. I would like to have Jeff be a signee on our checking, because Marty and I are, Jim, Tina, and Andrew are typically not in town. At some points, sometimes when we have to get called and sign a check, and I would like to get Jeff, again, because he has a business here, and he could, we don't have to do it very often, but
Right.
occasionally we have to have outside signee, and
Yes.
so instead of waiting another month, I'd like to
Do it right now?
do it right now. and
Sure.
Make a motion to approve Jeff as a signee on our checking accounts.
I'll support you, Perry.
Okay?
Do you still need a motion to,
I made
I
the
thought he made the
motion.
motion,
I
so.
didn't know if you could make the
I don't
motion
know.
to do that. Okay.
He just
Just did.
happened.
says he runs the meetings, so he defers to us. to
Yeah, you can do
motions,
this.
but-
You're allowed
But
to.
he can still do it.
Yeah,
It's
you're
a
allowed to.
dictate, isn't
Yep.
it a dictatorship? So anyway, there's been a motion
Okay.
and support.
Support.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
We're gonna call you every time just for fun.
Come down here, we'll just test it.
My wrist is sore, Jeff. Call
We
Jeff.
require 2 signatures on a check. And Ryan and Steve can sign, but
Julie.
occasionally they call me, or they're used to call Greg Canfield or Marty or somebody that was in town, because these guys are at a conference out of town or whatever, and so we don't get called very often, but once in a while we do get called that they have to have a check signed in order to, so that's the reason why. And I just, as we were going through this, it popped in my mind.
Glad you brought it up.
Thank you, Perry.
So next regular board meeting is November 9th.
Correct.
Board comments. Jim?
I'm not sure how it works, but a lot of you know I'm running for city council, which is held on November 8th. So I'm not sure if this would constitute possibly my last board meeting or not. So I'll have to see if I'm elected, if it would be until after I'm sworn in. So I don't know all those things, what happens. But I did want to thank everybody, in case I do win, that it's been a pleasure to serve on the board, and it's been a lot of fun. So with that, that's all I have.
Tina?
I'd like to thank Megan and the girls that assisted you to pulling all the paperwork and all the numbers together for this audit. That's, you're pretty kind of cool for pulling that together, coming through with flying colors, because in the past, Steve here was clenching his teeth and definitely just
That's
wasn't
true,
up.
yeah.
Yes, and you're just breezed in, this is what happened, you know, it's so, kudos to you, that you, kind of cool, thank you for.
It's a different Hope College graduate. One Hope College graduate, it's more of a,
She may be eyeing his job up.
I think so.
Good to have somebody in the
There you
background.
go. So, and definitely the harvest, what is it, harvest celebration that's
Meadows?
happening
No.
on
Saturday.
Saturday. Harvest
Festival,
Fest.
yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, that's coming up. I'm not gonna be there, but kudos to you that are cooking, gentlemen. Barney, definitely, you are amazing. What you know, and what you bring to the table with the turbine and what's going on over there. I really wish that you guys would do a video to do a walkthrough, what this guy does and what he has put together, because it's amazing. When I walked in there and saw, Navy ship gray painted everywhere, and I just went, wow, this place is amazing.
I just want to make sure he's got it all backed up and in a
Yeah.
3-ring binder or whatever.
Oh my God.
That's next.
Yeah. So definitely I'm going to make another visit over there. I said that last month, and I want to go and see what's changed. Definitely, I'm in awe what you bring to the table. So thank you for being a part of this. Other than that, I don't know.
Marty?
Yeah.
Council
Thank you
liaison.
for stepping up and taking my seat I vacated. I think you're a wonderful choice for it. I think you'll serve the board well. Jim, I'm not giving my seat up, so I don't know where you're gonna end up, but I know it ain't here.
And that's kind of good, because then we don't have to make any adjustments, because I play golf on Thursday nights in the summer, so we don't have to make any adjustments to the schedule, so that's a good thing.
Andrew?
I guess first of all, I just want to mention that I did go to the MMEA conference. That was definitely a fun thing to go to. I kind of had to dine and dash, so to speak, because I had other things going on that day, but I took some notes, 4 pages of notes from an attendant, a lot of interesting things just about rate structures and things like maybe possibly applying a demand charge to a customer once we get AMI, things like that we talked about. I mean, there are things to think about, in the coming years, of things we could try. And it's just also fun just kind of, see what other people are like. One interesting thing I thought was we had lunch with Grand Haven, right? A couple folks from Grand Haven. And they had said that 90% of their demand comes from one customer.
That was Zealand, I believe.
Yeah.
Or Zealand.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tracy.
Yep. I got it wrong though, so Zealand. Yeah, it's just crazy to imagine what that must be like. 90% of your demand, one customer.
What's the customer?
I think,
And,
I
or
think,
80, I don't know, something like that.
I think
It's
their
like a
top
huge
10
amount.
customers were 90%. The
Yeah.
biggest was Gentex.
Okay.
Okay, but it was just different, distribution of who they're providing power for than what we've got. Yeah, just
They have
Just
quite
need
the
to see.
industrial zone over there.
Yeah. Just wanted to say, welcome to Jeff. I think you're a great choice to be on the board, so I'm glad you wanted to do it. I know you a little bit, and I know you're very opinionated, but but also impressively very willing to change his opinion. That's not often you see that in somebody with strong opinions, but that's great to have an open mind in this type of a thing, and so hope you enjoy it here. Good luck to you. Hopefully, I guess you could say hopefully we don't see you again. If all goes well.
Well, I may be sitting in the audience
Yeah.
for some comments.
Yep. Yeah, and then lastly, I just wanted to mention, I wanted to say happy anniversary to my wife. Today's our anniversary of 15 years, which I still sounds weird to say that. I know it seems like ages ago I got married, but still when I say 15 years, really, it's been that long.
I'm 33 tomorrow.
Hey, all right.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
A life sentence.
Yeah.
I know.
Yep. I won't say any comments about me feeling old about it because I know it happened last time someone did that. Nobody else.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So this is what I do for my anniversary.
There you go.
It's better than me. I go to a golf outing each year. Jeff?
Well, I just, I want to thank everybody for allowing me to serve on the board. I've been watching for the last year or so from the audience and from the community, and the camaraderie and the teamwork that just exudes from this group is something that I want to be part of, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve here.
Great. Welcome to the board. I really don't have very much. Well, I'm gonna
22
keep it on-
minutes over.
No. So, the one thing I watching the national news and everything, so how much stuff do we have in cyber? I mean, do we run our computers or run our turbines by computer? Do we, again, because all of a sudden you're seeing in the national news, North Korea with cyber attacks on the power grid and yada, 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 and so, it makes me concerned, and I'm just thinking, a little old Lowell, we're not gonna be affected by that, but,
So at the MERS conference and the MMEA conference, they had cyber sessions. And in a way, we're probably more vulnerable than larger utilities because we just don't have the budget or the resources. And we are interconnected with the grid. We're interconnected via a VPN, virtual private network, is that what it stands
Yeah,
for?
that's what it is.
With the MPPA, we have a transmission line that affects all of our power coming into Lowell, and in theory, cyber is pretty huge here. Most of what we do in terms of our billing and our operations and work order and payroll all depend on computer nowadays. So we are dependent on technology. That being said, Betsy's done a great job, I believe, in implementing different cyber measures and controls. We have an untangle system. We have malware, spyware protection on every computer. We have a firewall. In the last couple years, we had what she referred to as pinholes, where outside sources had the capability to go into parts of our system. She has closed all those up, and I think we're about as protected and secure as you can be for a small utility. Something that we may want to consider though in the future is there's like cyber insurance you can buy, or like cyber training that we could invest in, or almost have like a penetration audit done where somebody comes in and they spend a day almost doing whatever, trying to hack in, trying to trick different employees to click on links, and just doing a full audit of where your weaknesses may be. And I think 80% of cyber weaknesses is actually your own employees. I think a statistic is whether it's just going to a website or clicking a link or at a conference and putting in a thumb drive, or even if you have like a company-wide laptop or tablet or phone, they now even have like new tablet. We don't have you connected to much, Perry. We just, we do not connect you to anything. Where they even trick people to the extent of, like, you know, if you go to a Marriott, it says Marriott _ guest.
Yeah.
Right.
They'll do a wireless network that's Marriott _ guest, and somebody will choose the wrong one, and it's somebody in their hotel room creating a wireless network or something, and they'll log on to that, and they'll get into your computer, find all your passwords, and then configure. So there's a lot of danger out there. So cyber is a big issue, and it's one of APPA's top 3 concerns. I mean, the American Public Power Association, top 3 concerns. So when we go to Washington, again in February for the legislative rally, it's something you really talk about and hope that grant dollars can be made available, especially for small municipals like us, that hopefully we can take advantage of this and install the protections that we need. So
Okay.
we do think about it, though. We really do.
Yeah, it's something probably to discuss with the city as well, that they're gonna have similar systems that are potentially vulnerable. That if we were to do anything like that, we may wanna do something with them.
Right.
We do a lot of audits generally. Is that something you can check into then and maybe report back at some point?
Yeah.
Say, this is a group that does a full cyber audit, and there'll probably be a cost associated with that. But that might be something worthwhile because we are more vulnerable in the city.
Right.
Because we're tied into the big grids.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's actually.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
And it's just watching the national news and see what's,
It's a great point.
because they're hitting that could be more devastating than a nuclear war. You know, they're,
I think the stat is there's like 6 or 7 key substations around the country that can almost shut everything down. So some of it isn't in our control, but at the same point, like just how sensitive the grid is. There wasn't it a couple years ago, Ryan, right here on the Virgins Marquette line, somebody hit the line and it took out almost a lot of the state of Michigan. What was that?
I don't recall that
Like a
one.
farmer piece of equipment?
I don't recall that outage, no, I don't.
There was a blink on the system
Mhm.
recently. You know what I'm talking about, you're just not remembering.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll be honest, I'm not remembering.
Anyway, it just shows how,
his mind's over at the New Union.
yeah, I know.
No, I'm good, but.
No, there was like a flicker on the entire system or throughout the state of
It was when the
Michigan.
windstorm, or just before the windstorm.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was during that windstorm when the sustained winds were all day long. They did have a blink on the line, because it
But it was
yeah.
It was just like one tiny area with one transmission line, but it affected so much, so it just shows how sensitive the electric grid is. Something could happen in Lowell and it could potentially affect who knows where, because we're connected to this transmission line. So, anyway.
Okay, that's the only thing I had. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn at 7:58.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn at 7:58, under 2 hours. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right.